All right, so I love what I saw. Someone is a cook, that's P. They work in the kitchen, that's Q. Remember, every single one of these is going to start P, then Q. The trick is what happens next. So I've got a cook and a cook, so that's P. And then I've got Mary works in the kitchen, Mary works in the kitchen, that's Q. These are two separate sentences. I have detached them and kept the same order, so they are valid, right? I think 100% of people got that correct. Number 2, pretty fantastic on this one too. I've got a polygon has 4 sides. This is a definition, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got a 4-sided shape, you can always call it a quadrilateral. So the converse, Q then P, is also going to be true, right? Definitions are what works best with biconditionals. When you write it as a biconditional, you got to start it exactly the same. Just don't use the if, don't use the and. So you're going to put polygon has 4 sides. If and only if it is a quadrilateral, right? So I take that P and I write it at the beginning, and then if and only if in the middle, and then a polygon as a quadrilateral comes at the end. Okay. Question 3, the trick here is to answer the right question. So I want the midpoint of AC. AC goes across the middle of this parallelogram. Oops, I don't want my eraser, I just want a different color. So I'm going to predict that it's somewhere right about there, right? So then I've got to go and do my midpoint formula. Midpoint is average. So I take my x's, 0 plus 12, and divide it by 2. 0 plus 12 is 6. And then I take my y's, 1 and 4. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 divided by 2. Right? Midpoint is x plus, x, I don't know why that plus sign doesn't want to work, divided by 2. It is an ordered pair, so it needs to be in parentheses. And then y plus y divided by 2, okay? And then always take this extra step of taking that point and plotting it and making sure it makes sense. 6, and then 5 halves is 2.5. So it is right about there, right? Fantastic job, everybody, on that one. I loved what I saw here, too. I saw this on so many Pear Deck slides, papers. I don't even know what to call them anymore. So I've got C and D. If I make that slope triangle, right, we can use Pythagorean theorem. The legs are A and B. That hypotenuse opposite the right angle is C. So this is 3, super easy to see in my drawing. This is 4, again, super easy to see. Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we're going to get 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. You want to take the square root of that in order to get the C by itself, right? It's going to end up being 5, but look what happens if I do it the other way. If I use my points, because I saw a lot of this too, x minus x, 8 minus 12, or 12 minus 8, 12 minus 8 squared, and then 4 and 1, 4 minus 1 squared. Look at what I get. 12 minus 8 is 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. We get the exact same thing. And the answer is going to be the square root of 25. So many people got that. Make sure you take that square root and give me the 5. Okay? If you don't, you're going to be tempted to choose 25 as an answer choice, and that's not going to be correct because you've got to take that square root. Okay? I know I talk fast, so you got to slow me down if you need me to. On these questions, I strongly, I can't tell you how strongly I encourage you to put this into Desmos. Open up Desmos on the side. Type in y equals negative x. That's just going to confirm for you that the diagonal goes this way. It should go through the origin. I didn't draw that line very carefully. So all of these 3 points are going to come down into this third quadrant. My parallelogram is going to look something like this. It's going to be off the page, so I can't get all of the coordinates exactly right, but they are all going to be negative coordinates because they're all going to be in this third quadrant. So my rule, if y equals negative x, is going to be to switch them and make them negative. So the y becomes the x and it turns negative. The y becomes the x and it turns negative. The x becomes the y becomes the x becomes the y becomes the x, and x becomes the y, and they're all negative. It's like contrapositive, okay? Switch them and negate them. And the trick is right here. If y equals negative x, then x equals negative y. That negative can kind of float around a little bit. That'll make more sense when you take chemistry next year or the year after. All right, question number 6. Remember, when you're doing counter examples, you want to keep the hypothesis and change the conclusion. So if I keep the hypothesis, I need something divisible by 3. 9 is divisible by 3, 18 is divisible by 3, and 36 is divisible by 3. That means I can divide all 3 of those numbers by 3 and get a whole number. I don't want them to be divisible by 6. So it can't be 18 because 18 divided by 6 is 3. Can't be 36 because 36 divided by 3 is, or by 6 is 6. So it's got to be B. Absolutely 100%. Okay. Questions? Okay, I can't be the only one with energy here today, guys. Just can't happen. What I'd like for you to do is join me not in the day 25 folder, but in the March 24th folder. I want to talk about 1 question on the quiz from yesterday and then 3 questions on the homework. So I'm going into this March 24th folder. And I'm going to jump over here. Hopefully it will do this quickly. Open up that quiz. It's question number 2 that I want to look at. Maybe. I can close that now. Let me look at preview. Come on, Schoology. There we go. Question number 2 is 100% the most missed question here. So the most often submitted wrong answer is x equals 5. X equals 5 is true. If you add these 3 angles up and set them equal to 180, x is going to equal 5. Why is that not the right answer? It's asking for that smallest angle. So if I get x equals 5, I got to substitute that back in here and do 9 times 5. The correct answer here is 45 degrees is the smallest angle. Okay? Please, 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 as you go through the test reviews and the tests today and tomorrow and Monday, make sure you're answering the right question. A lot of times you do all of the right math and you just answer the wrong question, and it's very sad. Are there any other questions on the quiz that you guys want to talk about? I just remembered I need to make a little video for somebody. No? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yes, no, maybe so? All right, cool. Then let's jump over to the homework because there are 3 questions I wanted to talk about on the homework. So if we go back over here. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm still in March 24th. Yesterday's homework. Bless you. I'm going to take it over here to open it so nobody can see anybody's scores. Homework number 3. Look down at questions. I think it's 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5 are the ones that I think we need to talk about the most. Questions 3, 4, and 5. I'm just trying to get a preview. Schoology is buffering. Buffer, buffer, buffer. Okay. Question number 1 looked fantastic. Question number 2 looked great. Question number 3 is tricky, tricky, tricky. So we've been talking about valid conclusions and stuff, right? In our warm-ups, but we haven't done any syllogism. This one's syllogism. If Brad does not add hot sauce to his tacos, why did my pen go away? If Brad does not add hot sauce to the tacos, they will not be spicy. Then the tacos are not spicy. That's the same. Brad's father does not eat them. That is something new. Brad's father does not eat them. So my blue things can cancel out. I've got the ending and the beginning of a sentence that are the same. So the blue ones cross out. I don't need that spiciness anymore. I've got Brad does not add hot sauce. That's a P. And I've got Brad's father does not eat them. So this is PQQR. So if I get rid of that blue stuff, the P comes down for the hypothesis, the green comes down for the conclusion, I've got P and R. The tricky thing is here, you can also do the contrapositive. So I can switch the order and negate them, okay? So there are two choices that are correct. Either Brad does not add hot sauce needs to be at the beginning, or it needs to be negated at the end. So Brad does not add hot sauce. Brad adds hot sauce. The negation can't be at the beginning, so that's not right. Brad added hot sauce to them. So Brad did not add hot sauce, and he did add hot sauce. This is the P that's been negated because I took out the not. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Then the Brad's father does not eat the tacos. The tacos are not spicy. We took out that blue spicy stuff. So that one's not right because that's the thing that repeats, right? So then I've got Brad does not add hot sauce to the tacos. Brad does not add hot sauce to the tacos. That's the P. This answer choice is syllogism. This answer choice is syllogism with detachment or with contrapositive. So tricky. Evil, maybe, in fact. I'm not even kidding. That is way too many words for a math class. Evil, evil, evil. Yuck. Okay. The next one is almost equally as evil. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to prepare you. I did let you know yesterday that there is an SOL, right? So this is how the SOL gets tricky. This is just a time-sucking question. You got to really think it through. If I plot all my points, -2, 3, -2, +3, that's D. Then 5, 5, 5, 5, that's E. Then -4, 10, -4, 10, that's F. Then I go through and I make that triangle. So boom, boom, boom. The question is asking me, is it right? Is it scalene? Is it isosceles? So there are some things I can do. To test to see whether it's right, I can test this angle to see if the lines are perpendicular. To do that, I need the slope. So if I draw those slope triangles, and this is a lot, then to get from point A to, or point D to point E, I've got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and right 2. My slope is going to be 7, 2, and that's a -7, 2, right? So my slope for this first part is -7 over 2. My slope for the second part is up 2, 1, 2, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm finding the slope of this blue line. So 2 over 7. Are those perpendicular? They are because they are the upside down reciprocal. Remember parallel, perpendicular, and neither? Parallel slopes have the exact same slope. Perpendicular, you take them and you flip them upside down and you negate one of them, almost like contrapositive. A lot of contrapositive thoughts here today, right? So they are perpendicular. That means they're going to be right. That means they're not acute. Okay, this is in fact a right angle. Now in the warm-up, we kind of talked about that we can use those slope numbers in order to find the distance here, right? We can use Pythagorean theorem. We just made a little right triangle. So if I use those slope numbers, -7 and 2, or +7 and 2, 2 squared plus 7 squared should equal c squared. And if I do -7 squared plus 2 squared, that should also equal c squared. These are going to end up being the same equation because when you square a negative number and you square a positive number, you get the same thing. So this is a right isosceles triangle. There's just a lot of work to get there, right? Another Mr. Yuck question. Okay. Got to be willing to put in the work. And we haven't looked at any like that, so I totally get why this was a low question yesterday. Last one is number 5. And number 5, if you can do number 4, now you can do number 5. So the most common wrong answer here, people do 20 minus 5 and get 15. And then they correctly do 5 minus 20 and they get -15. And they put in -1. Why is that not the right answer? What did I forget? Yeah, what's the question asking? Perpendicular line. A parallel line is going to have this slope. That's the symbol for parallel. A perpendicular line is going to be the negative reciprocal. I've got to do -1 over 1, flip it around, and make it positive. And then, Jaden, 100%, we've got to reduce it to 1. So your answer here, instead of being -1, is +1. Don't put the positive sign in, it'll count it wrong. Okay, I just want to make a point. Were there any other questions on the homework that stumped people? Those were the 3 obvious ones that I know people were probably going to want to talk about. Anything else you want to talk about? 6? 6 is a good one. So make your triangle. I can't impress upon you enough how important it is to draw these triangles out. Just sketch them, right? If I see that C repeats, then C goes at the top. A and B. So AC is congruent to CB. CB is an isosceles triangle. If I know that those 2 sides are the same, which 2 angles are the same? So angle A and angle B, right, are going to be the same because they're at those congruent sides. So if you take the sides and you don't use the one that they join at, right, and you go down to the other angles, those angles are the ones that are congruent. So there's a couple of choices here. Choice 1 is to take angle A and angle B and set them equal to each other. I know this is an isosceles triangle because 2 sides are the same. So therefore, 2 angles must be the same. So you can do 3x plus 18 equals 7x minus 58. Okay. If you're not sure about that, because these are all angles, measure of angle A, measure of angle B, measure of angle C, you can add them all up. So 3x plus 18 plus 7x minus 58 plus 2x minus 8. If I add all of those up, they should equal 180 degrees. So whether you see that it's an isosceles triangle and the 2 corners are the same, you can set them equal, or you see that these are angles and it only works if they're angles. If you're given 3 sides, do not set them equal to 180. Sides are not going to equal 180 every time, but angles you can add up and set equal to 180. When you're done, you should get x equals 19, I think. I'm told. I haven't actually solved it. Can anybody confirm that that's right? If I solve one of those equations, does x equal 19? I have my calculator. I could do it, but I'd rather you guys do it. Is it right? X equals 19? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Then you're going to take that 19 and you're going to substitute it in where you see an x. So 3 times 19 plus 18 is going to give you a. 3 times 19 plus 18 is going to give me the measure of angle A. The measure of angle B is going to come right here, 7 times 19 minus 58. And then the measure of angle C comes right here, 2 times 19 minus 8. All of those angles, because they're angles of a triangle, should equal 180 when you're done. So you can always check your work and make sure it's correct. So much, so hard, right? Definitely a lot harder than the quiz. The quiz was like base level. This one's next level. Any other questions? Which other ones would we like to look at before we look at the lesson? Uh-oh, we're dropping like flies in here. Brendan, are you okay? You okay? Yeah? Okay. Just checking. All right. Then if we are done with that, no more questions. Let's go to today's lesson. Today we've got 3 major goals. They're all pretty easy, but they can get confusing. And just like everything else in geometry, they're going to start easy and then get a little more complicated. So you got to kind of pay attention through the monotony of the easy. Today's the 25th, so join me on the 25th. It is another pair deck as soon as my cursor comes back to life. So I'll put the link in the chat in case you're not on Schoology or your system is being glitchy. Like mine. There are a bunch of links down here in this page. It's not really an assignment, it's just more links. So our questions of the day are going to be, how do we order sides and angles of a triangle? Is it a triangle? And then what's the range of the third side? So I'm going to put the Pear Deck link, but in Schoology there is a Google Slides link. So if you're tired of trying to write with Pear Decks, I totally get it. They are not for everyone, especially my chat just evaporated. So give it a second. Computer's thinking. Ay, ay, ay. And it's back. Paste. The Pear Deck link is in the Zoom chat if you want it or need it. I'm going to close this because I'm going to write on the Google Slides. Okay, some of the Google Slides didn't take my writing tools, so you might not be able to write on all of them the way I hoped. There should be some Desmo links in here though, so please use the Desmo links. Basically, our 3 things for today are this. We're going to order sides and angles. Notice that 17 is smaller than 20 and smaller than 24. 17 is this green side. It's smaller than 20 and smaller than 24. So the 17 is opposite angle C, which is going to be the smallest angle. We can't tell what the measure of it is, but it's going to be smallest. Then the purple side, the 20, is the medium side. 20 is bigger than 17 and smaller than 24. So if I go through the center of the triangle through to the opposite corner, angle A is going to be the medium angle. Again, I can't tell how big it's going to be, but I know it's got to be the medium angle. Same thing with the 24. Okay, the 24 is the biggest side, so B has to be the biggest angle. That's going to be the first part of our lesson today. The second part of the lesson is going to be to use those small, medium, and large angles. This only works with the angles. The small angle plus the medium angle has to be bigger than the large angle. You're just going to have to memorize that. Small plus medium is bigger than big. Small plus medium is bigger than big. In both the first and the second parts of today's lesson, you're going to have 3 pieces of information. And if you don't have 3 pieces of information, you need to calculate the third one, okay? The last one, we're only going to talk about sides. And if I give you sides, and I only give you 2, you can figure out the maximum and the minimum of the third side by adding and subtracting. So this is kind of our goal for the day. It's what we're going to set it up for. There is a Desmo's explanation up here in the corner, a link to YouTube, and all those links are in the page if you're on the Pear Deck and it doesn't let you link, okay? So if we get on to slide 2, which will allow me, and we click on that triangle, maybe, there should be a Desmo link. There we go. It'll take you to a little Desmo geometry tool. It's just a drawing tool where there's a triangle. So I encourage you to follow that link. Hopefully it works on the Pear Deck. and just play with the triangle. Drag the angles in and out a little bit and just prove to yourself that the small side is always opposite the small angle, the medium side is always opposite the medium angle, and the large side is always opposite the large angle. So if I take this triangle and I make it super, super, super long, this 90-degree angle is always going to be opposite that biggest side because it's the biggest angle, right? Blue to blue. The medium is always going to be across from the medium, and the small is always going to be across from the small. You can really exaggerate that, right? Or you can make them almost equilateral and try to find those 60s, right? Notice I've got a 61 and a 61, so the blue line side and the green line side are going to be congruent. This is an isosceles triangle. Okay, kind of fun to play with. So let's do some practice. Slide 3 is where we got some practice. My Desmo will go there. Boom. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So we're just going to look at the bottom. In the Google Slides, you've got a video here. So if you don't understand what I'm saying to you, you can always go look at the video. It's not going to let me zoom. I'm going to start writing on it, and then it's going to let me zoom. So if 7 is my smallest number, which angle is my smallest side? Or if 7 is my smallest side, which is my smallest angle? I know it's super tiny in the bottom of the screen. The U is opposite the 7, so that's the smallest. It's asking me to go greatest to least, so that smallest angle has to be at the end. Okay. The medium side is the 11. 11 is in the middle of 7 and 13, so W has to go in the middle. And then the last one, V, has to be the biggest corner because 13 is the biggest side. So that's V. Make sense? Let's see if it's caught up to itself. Look at that. So if we look down on the bottom of the second side over here, no, I want to go down. There we go. I've got a triangle here, ZXY, ZXY. I'm missing an angle, so the very first step is going to be to solve for that angle. Somebody with a calculator, do the math and tell me what X equals. How can I figure out what X equals? If you have a missing corner, you always want to find that first. 55. 55, love it. So then we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So what is my smallest side if I know that I've got angles of 75, 55, and 50? What's my smallest side? So I've got the 50 is the smallest angle. So if I go to the opposite side, that's going to be XZ or ZX. It doesn't matter how you write it, XZ or ZX. So if 50 is my smallest corner, opposite it, the one that does not include the Y, is my smallest side. What's the medium? Yeah, medium angle is at 55, so I got to do Z to Y. And it doesn't matter if you do ZY or YZ. And then the very last one is at 75. Notice that the 75 is the biggest angle, so 75 is not in the side. XY is the other side. Okay. This is pretty straightforward. It doesn't take a whole lot of time or energy. Let's practice on maybe the next 4 slides and see what we need to do. So slide 4. I'll zoom back out because that is crazy big. And I'm feeling red today. So if I'm going to order this, order the sides and angles, order the angles from least to greatest. So what is the smallest angle? I find that smallest side and I shoot an arrow over to the angle, and R is definitely the smallest angle. What's the medium angle? Between 8 and 11, which one is medium? The 8 for sure. So if I take an arrow and I shoot it through the center of the triangle, the G is the medium. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So then if I take my biggest side and I shoot an arrow through the middle of the triangle, B is going to be my biggest angle. I have no idea what those angles are as far as numbers go, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, B is the biggest, G is the mediumest, if that's a word. Don't tell your English teachers I'm making up new words. Okay, let's look at number 5, slide 5. So slide 5. In the last one, we had all 3 angles. In this one, we're only given 2. So what's our first step? Step number 1. Everybody's saying it inside their head. They just don't want to say it out loud. Absolutely. Calculate that third angle. So do that. Take out your calculator, open up your Google, do whatever you want to do, and find angle C. Absolutely. Find the measure of angle C. So we need to know the measure of angle C. What is that? Should be something pretty small, 40 something maybe. Anybody got it? Christian, you got 35? 37. All right, 37. So then we're ordering sides from least to greatest. So what do I start with? A. If I start with A, angle A goes with BC. Is BC the longest, the shortest, or the mediumest? Longest. So that needs to go at the end. BC. Or you can write it CB. It starts to get a little bit alphabet soup, kind of. So now what? Which angle do you want to look at now, B or C? Isaiah is saying the 37. So if I look at the 37 and I shoot an arrow through the center of the triangle, that lands on AB, right? So if we're at C and I shoot an arrow through, it's going to be AB. AB is the smallest because 37 is smaller than 51. And then you can finish that out with the last one. Angle B shoots across the center of the triangle to AC. Either AC or CA. Questions, comments, concerns, worries? We're all so excited. I know. All right, slide 6. What the heck? There's no picture. What do I have to do? Draw your own. Absolutely. Sketch that triangle, right? I have no idea what the triangle actually looks like, so I'm just going to draw kind of close to an equilateral one. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough. I've got GHJ, G, H, and J. I know GH is 21, so GH is 21. And HJ is 24, HJ is 24. And GJ is 9, GJ is 9. So how do I order the angles from greatest to least? What's step number 1? It got cold all of a sudden, didn't it? Did it get cold? Anyway, sorry. Christian, what do I do first? You look like you had a thought. Yeah, so if I look at that 24, let me get the right color. So if I look at that 24, what's it across from? G. Perfect. What's step number 2? Do I want to go to the 21 or the 9? All right. If I go to that 21 and I go straight through the center, is that the medium or is that the small? Medium. Excellent. Which means that this last one, which is H, has to be the small. Easy peasy, right? Notice that in 21, GHJ is what is missing, right? This is the medium side and J is the medium angle. G is what's missing here. This is the longest side and that's the biggest angle. And then GH is what is missing. H is the smallest angle because this is the smallest side. Together, the longest side or the medium side and the medium angle take up all three angles in the triangle. The longest side and the biggest angle are all three, right? So sometimes that's a little shortcut. Not everybody can see that in their head. So just a little mental note for those who like that kind of thing. This is our last practice for this kind of question. Then we're going to go on to the second type of question. Guys, if you have not been paying attention until now, right? If you're laying on the couch and your eyes are drifting closed, please wake up, sit up. Look at this question. You can't just listen to this one passively. I can't even tell you how many times people miss this question. And sometimes it's literally this exact question because they draw a picture, but they don't read and label it correctly. So as we label it, make sure you're doing this on your Pear Deck or on your Google Slides. Part of a marching band formed a triangle, right? So I'm all of a sudden imagining myself up in the stands, watching some kind of game or parade or something. And there's a marching band doing cool formations around the field, okay? Made up of trumpet players on one side, clarinet players on one side, and then flute players on the third side. So when I go to draw my triangle, we've been labeling our angles. So the temptation is to do T for trumpet, C for clarinet, and F for flute. But ladies and gentlemen, these are sides. So we've got trumpet players all shoulder to shoulder on one side of the triangle. We've got clarinet players all shoulder to shoulder on one side of the triangle. And we've got flute players on one side of the triangle. Then we've got angles. So our angles, where the trumpet and the flutes meet, so where the trumpets and the flutes meet is right here. That's 45 degrees. And the angle where the flutes and the clarinets meet, so flutes and clarinets, that doesn't really look like a CL, does it? The flutes and the clarinets meet over here at 68 degrees. Make sure your degrees are at corners. Degrees have to be at corners, okay? Now we can label our sides from greatest to least, or not greatest to least to greatest. This is way too many words for a math teacher, I'm sorry. So what do I have to do first? Now that I've got this pretty drawing and it's color coded and I've got my sides and my angles all labeled correctly, step number one is get your third angle. So you get your third angle by picking up your calculator, dun, 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 and doing 180 minus 45 minus 68. Can you guys tell I'm a little slap happy today? I didn't sleep so well last night. So 67 degrees. How does that help us out? Ordering sides least to greatest. Yeah. Look at the least first. So my smallest number is at 45. 45 is smaller than 67 and 68. The clarinets are opposite that. So either the clarinets, we don't have very many clarinets, or they're kind of small instruments and they're all just squished together, right? Then we look at the next smallest side, or the next smallest angle. That's the 67. The 67 is across from the flutes. So our flute players have a little bit more space. It kind of makes sense because they play out here like this. And then we've got our trumpet players. Trumpet players, those are the biggest instruments. Not that that really makes a whole lot of difference, but you know. Trumpets over here. Okay, smallest to largest, smallest to largest. Make sense? Okay. This is going to be learning target 4. When you go to do your test reviews, these questions are going to be on learning target 4. I think there's only 4 of them, not very many. So let's go to slide 8. There aren't any more questions. Small plus medium is bigger than large. If we went back and opened that Desmo with a triangle that you could drag the angles to, you'd be able to look at those angles and say the small plus the medium is always bigger than the large. It doesn't matter what kind of triangle you make. Small plus medium is always bigger than large, okay? Small plus medium is always bigger than large. For the sides, sorry. Well, it works for the angles too, but we're really talking about sides here. So if we go to 9, if you're on the Google Slides, you can drag these yellow boxes. This is straight out of your digital notebook. I just put it in a Pear Deck. If you're in the Pear Deck, it was supposed to let you write on it, but it doesn't. You're just going to have to do it on a piece of paper. So make sure you look for the small, the medium, and the large. They're not always going to be in the right order. You want small plus medium has to be bigger than large. Notice there's no equal sign under here. They cannot be equal. Cannot be equal. If they're equal, it's going to be a flat triangle. Okay? So take a minute and go through all 6 choices. Write them down on a piece of paper if you need to, and decide, are they a triangle or are they not a triangle? Are they a triangle or are they not a triangle? Okay, questions on that? Super easy, right? Let's do 3 more just to be sure. We'll do slide 10, but then we won't do 11 and 12. So what do we think about number 1 here? Does this work if we want small plus medium is bigger than large? Small plus medium is bigger than large. Does that work? 12 plus 13 equals 25. So this one is a no. What about this one? 8, 7, and 12. 7 plus 8 is bigger than 12. Is that true? It is for sure. Notice that they're not always in the right order. You've got to do small plus medium is bigger than large. Small plus medium is bigger than large. What about this one? 4, 4, and 9. 4 plus 4 is less than 9. So that's also going to be a no, right? They cannot equal. They cannot be less than. They must be greater than. Okay. If you need more practice on it, slides 11 and 12 are going to give you more practice, but I want you to go down to slide 13. This is kind of the conceptual one, okay? The last one is super easy. Small plus medium is bigger than large. Just memorize it. It'll make your life easier, okay? This one you got to kind of think about, okay? So I encourage you to open the Desmo. I'm going to open it too, so then you can look at what I'm doing, kind of play with it yourself. It's all good. Come on, I know there's a Desmo link in here somewhere. There we go. Open Sesame. So what we've got here is a triangle and a circle. And we're going to pretend the 2 legs of the triangle are moving around the circle like a hinge. Okay? So this 125 is my hinge right here. If I have 3 and 11 and I try to keep it at a 3, I can't figure out a way to make this circle stay at a 3. But if I close that hinge, right, then the biggest possible length that this could be is 8. If I have to have a 3 and an 11 and I make a super acute triangle and close that hinge, 11 minus 3 is 8. At 8, it's going to be a flat line, right? So it's got to be a little bit bigger than 8 if this is really a 3. If I open this, it can go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, but it kind of stops at 14 because if I keep this other leg a 3, I have to have 11 and 3. This can never actually get to 14 because 8 plus 3 is 14 and it lays flat again, right? So what I want you to think about is these 2 numbers that you're given are on a hinge, and we're either closing that hinge to make it small or we're opening the hinge to make it really big. Okay, that's like your visual. So feel free to come back to this anytime you need it. Hopefully that helps it make sense a little bit. So let's go to slide 14 and see what that actually looks like in a math problem instead of a visual. I'm practicing patience today. So there's a lot on this slide. What I want to focus your attention on is this example down here in the left-hand corner. If I give you a 3 centimeter stick and I give you an 11 centimeter stick, how big a stick do you need to close that triangle? Well, the process is subtract the two numbers. 11 minus 3 is 8. And then add the two numbers. 11 plus 3 is 14. You add them when the hinge is closed, or you subtract them when the hinge is closed, and you add them when the hinge is open. So anything between 8 and 14 is going to close that triangle. What does that look like over here? Well, if I have 9 and 7, 9 minus 7 is 2. This middle part is always going to stay the same. It's always going to be less than x is less than. You're going to subtract your two numbers and put them first, and then add your two numbers. 9 plus 7 is 16. It's the hinge closing between 9 and 7, and then opening between 9 and 7. Okay? So what would you do for example number 2? What do you do with the 6 and the 12? Add them, yeah. So 6 plus 12 is 18. My biggest number goes over here on the right. And then my smallest number, how do I get the smaller number again? Minus it, subtract them. So 12 minus 6 is 6. Okay. We're not going to do example number 3 right now because I don't know that we need to. But a lot of times these are in word problems. So let's go look and see what the word problems could look like. I think there's 3 examples, and then I'm going to let you work on your test reviews. John's enclosing a triangular pen with wire fencing. 2 sides of the pen measure 14 feet and 8 feet. So it's like my little vegetable garden that I try to keep Peter Rabbit out of. Except instead of one Peter Rabbit, I've got like a million of them. So I've got a piece of fencing that's 14. And I've got another piece of fencing that's 8. If I close that hinge between 14 and 8, what's the smallest piece that I could need for this triangle? 14 minus 8 is 6. Excellent. So if I have a super acute triangle and I close that hinge as far as it'll go, the smallest I could need is 6. But if I've got the 14 and I want to make a super big obtuse angle, 14 and 8, I open that hinge, you've got to add. So I'm subtracting to get the 6. And I'm adding to get, what's 14 plus 8? 22. Okay. Remember that when you're at 6 and the hinge is all the way closed, it's flat. So it can't equal. Again, there's no equal signs here. There's a hole right there, if you remember from algebra, how you kind of graph inequalities. And there's a hole at 22. Okay, it can be 7, it can be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, any of these numbers and any of the decimals in between. It just can never be 6 and it can never be 22. It's all of the things in the middle. Okay, that's kind of one of the things that's a little tricky with this. Questions? This one's tougher. It's a little more conceptual, a little less obvious. Follow the procedure, subtract to get the small, add to get the big. It has to be something in the middle. Okay. Let's look at Ben and Noah. I think they robbed a bank. Scandalous, I know. Slide 16. Ben and Noah committed a crime. Oh, we don't know what crime they committed. They're not being very school appropriate, though, with that shovel. Noah travels 84 miles in one direction and Ben travels 63 miles in another direction. This picture is leading you to believe that they've gone in these particular directions, but I want you to think of this as a hinge. If they ran in the exact same direction, how far ahead of Ben is Noah? What is the difference? 84 minus 63. What's 84 minus 63? 21. So if they go in the same direction, Ben and Noah are going to be 21 miles apart. If they go in completely opposite directions and that hinge is open full, then 84 plus 63 is 147. If they go in some other direction, they could be anything in the middle between that. Okay? This is how police officers figure out the radius, right? So they would have to look, if they had spent enough time that they thought that Noah and Ben could have traveled this far, they've got to look between 21 and 147 miles away. Okay, we subtract to get the small number and we add to get the big number. You only do this when you're given two distances, right? Your key to knowing that this is the process is that you're given two distances. If you're given two angles, you can always find the third angle. Let's look at slide 17. I think that's the last one for us for today, but I could be wrong. Yep, this is the last one. This perhaps looks like the easiest one, but it is almost always the hardest one on the test. What's your steps? Talk me through what you think about after all we've talked about today. What's step number one? Find the missing angle. Absolutely. When in doubt, find out any information you can. So if I know the 68 and the 47, what's angle C? I know I got to reach for a calculator or a piece of paper. What's angle C? Anybody got it? My Zoomy students, feel free to chime in. 65. Okay. So what do I know about the triangle? Because I know 65. What else did we talk about today? So we know all the angles should add up to 180. So we found the 65. It is scalene. So all three angles are different. So all three sides are different. It is scalene. Love it. What else do I know? We're just brain dumping. What else do I know? What else do I know? What did we talk about today? We can find the third side. Can we find the third side? Yeah. Okay, how? Or like between what's going to be between. What we can find what it's going to be between. How can we find out what it's going to be between? So if I have two sides, I can subtract them. 10 minus 7 is 3. And 10 plus 7 is 17. 10 plus 7 is 17. That's not one of my answer choices. Why isn't that one of my answer choices? This is starting to make me mad. We've got all kinds of great stuff going on here. We've got a scalene triangle. We found the third side. I know it should be between 3 and 17, but I'm kind of pissed off because that's not an answer choice and I feel like it should be. What was the very first thing we learned today? Small, medium, and large. How do I decide what's small, what's medium, and what's large? Divide. How do I find out what's small, medium, and large? What do we do in the very first few slides? Small angle is always opposite. Small angle is always opposite the smallest side. So of my three angles, 47 is the smallest, which means 7 has got to be the smallest. So it can't really be 3. The smallest it can be is 7, right? Because that's the small side. Then the medium angle is the 65. So this is medium. That means this side has to be the medium side. So AB has to be the medium side. It has to be less than 7 or bigger than 7, but less than 10 because it's the medium side. Right? B is the largest angle, so 10 is the largest side. This one's kind of a brain. I don't know. I don't really like this question very much. I always have to think about it every time I look at it. Okay. Some questions will be crazy easy, super straightforward. Some of them not so much.